Whoa! Whoa! It's the Yewllusion reported from somewhere on spaceship Earth. Guest, second time appearance, Stuart J Hooper from the UK.
Yeah.
Now residing in the USA.
Yeah, in Oklahoma.
And Oklahoma. That's flyover country.
Yeah, perhaps so. Yeah, there's nothing there if you ask people on the other side of the country.
But there is something there,
yeah.
isn't there?
Yeah, there are quite a few people there.
So to catch you up, Stuart, you were one of the early live ones we did in front of that. What, 2 years ago? You were saying?
Yeah, we did it in front of the Starbucks.
Yeah, we did. To plug into the live feed.
Jacked into their Wi-Fi and off we went.
So you got to give yourself a little bit of history of who you are. Yellbird. You give yourself a history.
Sure. Well, yeah, some of you guys probably saw me on Hamish's channel here. My name is Stuart Hooper. I'm from the UK. I now live in the US. Once ran for Parliament. I guess that's how Hamish and I kind of originally got talking. Then I moved to the US for grad school in New Mexico. So I was living in Albuquerque, New Mexico for a couple of years. And now I'm living in a small town, Oklahoma, where I'm actually teaching political science. So despite the fact that I am from England, students in the US currently have an English person teaching them American government, which is kind of ironic. And for those of you asking, Hamish is just about to make his return.
No, hold on. No, keep going for a minute. I was supposed to be napping. He's not.
Oh, okay. So you got to break out the cars.
You got to break out some cars.
That always works. Yeah, so I've been here once before, and I think that was just after the election of Trump that Hamish and I originally spoke in person, that is. So now we've gone quite a way into the whole presidency of Trump. Coming up next year is going to be quite exciting, I think, with the re-election potentially of Trump, honestly, depending on how that turns out. But right now with the field of Democrats, I reckon it's probably looking like he will get re-elected. But I'm sure we can talk about all that stuff and a lot more today in our discussion here.
All right, so you established yourself as a UK politician.
Yeah,
ran.
Yeah.
So that's rad. Stuart ran over there. So you had the big vote over there.
Yeah.
Which
was right before I left for the US in 2016. And
because that was when Brexit.
Yeah, that was when the original vote was. Yeah. So
I
was still there for that. I voted. Yet still it hasn't manifested in.
Well, you had the next big vote. You had the next big vote has just gone through, which was the Brexit Party. Yeah.
So in the European elections, the Brexit Party dominated that one pretty seriously.
Yeah.
So I put out a video probably 2 or 3 weeks ago now where I spoke about Nigel Farage looking a lot like Donald Trump.
A little bit.
Because that's kind of what he's starting to look like to me in terms of a figure that is not a political elite. So you can definitely say these guys are elites, maybe financial elites, right? So Trump comes from the business. He's definitely a financial elite, but he's not a political elite. I think that's what people have really come to the end of their tether with. Career politicians that don't seem to do anything.
What about him throwing Sargon of Akkad under the bus?
Wait, who?
You know, the guy's YouTube channels.
Trump or Farage?
No, Farage.
Oh yeah.
He threw Sargon Akkad under the bus.
Yeah, because he's running under Farage's old party banner.
Yeah, UKIP, right? Which I thought was interesting because he hit him on the but you know, the inner workings of they show their true colors.
Definitely.
You know, in a weird Nigel Farage kind of way, he should have been. You know what? You're on the other party, but you're doing the same thing I'm doing.
Yeah.
So rising tide lifts all boats. Theoretically,
that's what you're.
And it was my first kind of where I was like, Farage, dude, like, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't want to alienate these people,
right?
Because they're your new political base.
Yeah,
coming up.
But I think in terms of name value, though, that's cool. I think Farage definitely has far more name value in the mainstream political public in the UK, whereas some of these alternative media sort of figures like your Sargon of Akkad and individuals like that do try to get involved with politics, it's going to take them far longer to get the same sort of traction that Farage actually has. So I reckon that's probably why we're seeing that now.
Seeing what?
Farage taking off and Sargon of Akkad not. I was just explaining that I think Farage has more of a reach in mainstream politics in the UK.
Well, that's what I mean. Is the irony is he's becoming the new mainstream.
Yeah, so that's also kind of happens with these figures.
Yeah.
They initially look like they are outside of the political elite and they're not part of that whole system, but eventually they do kind of get substituted.
David Icke always warns us of these things.
Yeah.
He called out all these guys.
Yeah, he's been against Trump from pretty much day one, actually, David Icke. He's been one of the main...
Well, I've always known Trump was a puppet, a distraction.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people think that Trump has some power. He's just doing the circus sideshow because where's the wall?
Yeah, I think he's found that once you get into that seat in the Oval Office behind the desk, you look all powerful, but
there's no
behind the curtain or behind the camera, everything else that you see, the permanent bureaucracy, trying to fight that is.
Well, but I'll give him the thing, and it's been pointed out, is he's the dude who's exposed the mainstream media for the fraud they are.
Definitely. That is the one thing that I think you have to credit Trump.
Absolutely. He trolled the media into revealing themselves for the scumbags they are. So, I mean, so here we are is Stuart's a YouTuber, and I've been talking about this one coming since we had Adpocalypse right after, during the Trump thing. You had Adpocalypse, and then you had the coming online of Article 13, which most people don't. I'm pretty free of it because I don't use any copyrighted material, but but it's that shirt could be considered. Right. You got to be careful of what you're wearing, what's in the background, and all that kind of stuff. So Article 13, I don't think people truly understand is coming to slam censorship on our experience here on the World Wide Web.
Definitely, I think all that is getting very scary. Very scary indeed.
Yeah, horrifying.
Yeah,
that some what most people don't. Are you good, Owl? Is that the EU is a manifestation of Hitler and his whole power,
Okay, in terms of something that
he was actually the one who coined the phrase. Yeah.
Yeah, the whole censorship stuff though is getting very, very worrying.
So getting to the thing as here's a British citizen, a United States citizen here on D-Day. D-Day, 75 years later, after the troops stormed Normandy to fight the Nazis.
Yeah, absolutely.
You good, Bird? Okay, bye. And
yeah, D-Day is something that I've been fascinated with since I was this tall.
Well, I'm sure it's even more real over there.
Definitely.
Than it is over here because we're just so far removed.
Yeah, so far removed from it.
And culturally, we're just far removed from anything.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the U.S. mainland was never touched during World War II.
Yeah.
So I think the fact that Europe was so heavily scarred, that still resonates.
Well, you guys were bombed by B-1 rockets and the whole thing, like the Blitz and the whole thing. People, my grandfather was an RAF fighter pilot.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, in the Battle of Britain. So they were Anglophiles who moved over to Canada.
All right.
After the war. So it's interesting. But so here we are. We're on D-Day, 75 years later, and they just had a giant purge of political thought.
Yeah.
I don't. Are people catching the truly genius irony of that, or is it by design? I just think it's fittingly by design.
Yeah, I mean, you could say it's all coincidence, but yeah, the fact that it is done so close to it is a little scary. And also the fact that everything that operation was trying to do. It was trying to free Europe, which had been captured and dominated by one political ideology.
Yeah.
The only political ideology that was allowed in Europe was Nazism. And now we're getting to a similar situation where if you're not of a certain political ideology, well, then you can't have a YouTube channel, or you can't have a Twitter account, you can't have a Facebook.
Well, according to the whole demographic or the whole hype, now we're the Nazis, which is the irony. Like the script has been so flipped that it's blown, and it's all being used under very intolerant people.
Yeah,
you know, the least tolerant people are these social justice warriors, which
definitely. Yeah, so I heard that this whole purge yesterday came from one individual on Twitter that had been insulted by someone.
Some guy from Vox Media, which is funded by a huge corporation, by the MSN, I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure who funds that one, but it's definitely
Let's find out.
It's one of those websites that poses as an alternative kind of news source, but it's very much mainstream. It only will ever peddle the mainstream light on anything.
It's Carlos Menza. What is his name? I'm not sure. Let me see. Well, I think he's a smoke screen. They've been gearing up to do this the whole time. And that's why they've let some of these guys off the chain. But the interesting thing, I don't think I'm like a big the demonetized cry. I've always been like, yeah, well, that's what you get as where you want their money. They're going to shut you down whenever they want.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But I don't like the wholesale deleting thing. I don't think that's a legitimate. I think that's whitewashing history. Because you look at that one teacher who had his stuff deleted because he was.
We should probably explain that one.
You go ahead.
Yeah, so there was a teacher that had videos of Nazi speeches and Nazi rallies actually from the late 30s and the 40s just on his YouTube channel that he would use for educational purposes. But now even having that sort of historical material on your channel is apparently now promoting said ideas.
Well, it's so interesting because I get why they're doing it. Because as we move closer to that totalitarian space, it's looking more and more like that. It's just the red armbands have been replaced by rainbow tutus.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's beginning to look, and the yelling and the shouting down and the violence and the whole thing is exactly what the brown shirts were doing.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at what the brown shirts were doing, it's no different than what's going on with the milkshaking and all this weird. What is this guy's name?
Yeah, so that this is the same guy. So the guy who pushed for this new ban, which came in yesterday. Apparently, he was also calling for all right wingers to be milkshaked. Right?
Yeah.
This is the same guy. And milkshaking means that you go out and you find yourself a milkshake, and
which is assault.
Yeah, then you would throw it at somebody of the opposite political persuasion that you are, which, as you rightly say, is assault. That is violence. That's a violent act.
Yeah.
And political violence is very rarely justified.
Well, it's not supposed to be in a civilized society,
exactly,
like open discourse. But the interesting thing is they're using the guise of you're Nazis, so go punch a Nazi thing, which ironically they don't even know the definition of what a Nazi is.
Right. Because they're applying it to everybody that is just right of center, which is completely incorrect.
Yeah, because that's not who the Nazis were on any level.
No, they were all the way to the right. They didn't just think that conservative values when it comes to government finance were something worth.
Well, the ironic is they're socialists too. Which, so it's like you're like, and if you look at how they're using the state, the SJW left using the state to enforce their socialist mindset. It's very creepily similar. They just haven't taken over industry yet. But have they? Maybe they have taken over industry. If one lone dude can get up and start a bunch of trouble because he's somebody and get all these people banned, maybe they have taken over industry. I mean, look at Twitter and all this stuff. Maybe they have actually gotten in there and used their socialism under the forms of production. Maybe the production now is information and media versus, guns and bombs.
Yeah. I think that is very important, though, the fact that all of these mediums, this is how we communicate today. Live streaming, this is another thing that looked like it was being threatened.
Oh, it's fully threatened.
The guy in New Zealand who live streamed himself doing the killing spree in the couple of mosques, which again is shutting down another route for individuals to be able to get their information and their voice out to the wider world.
Well, I knew the minute that went down what that was really about. It was all about the live streaming thing. It's because it's an effective tool. So what, you have some psyop guy go in there. So I've been tripping out on the Max Egan angle on it. Ever check out Max Egan? So Max Egan's thing is, and this is where it's they're using this against the open free expression, is they've got people saying that it didn't happen, right? When I've gone, you can check out the video, like you can get it all sorts of places, but they're getting people to go to talk about whether it did happen or didn't happen. When it did happen, the real psyop was the live streaming mechanization and who this guy was, and the cut and paste. I mean, have you read his manifestos? Like,
I've seen bullet points from it. Yeah,
it's not that crazy, and it's straight up the thing. You know what I mean? It's all about this use of immigration populations to crush, homogenous economies, essentially. I think we live in an interesting time. We'll probably get deleted for this talking right here about any sort of ideas.
Hopefully this isn't the video that gets your channel shut down.
It's the thing of I don't think people understand how tentative it all really how tentative free speech really is.
Yeah.
Because they've disguised, because you live under a different system. Like the United States is sort of the Constitution's the backlash to the authoritarian nature of the crown, right? You don't particularly enjoy free speech over in the UK.
Yeah, definitely not as much as you do here. If you were to stand on the corner of a street dressed up as a Klansman and spewing racial attacks against some particular group. If you did that in the US on a street corner, you'd be fine. If you did that in the UK, you could be arrested for doing that.
Yeah, no, I mean, you look at the weird thing they have where the police are showing up at houses for the for Twitter comments.
Yes,
and they're pretty benign.
Yes, so you don't have to go as extreme as being dressed up as a
on
the street. You have to just send a tweet that might offend something.
They're talking about the Asians.
Yeah, we're talking about any particular group.
But it's specifically the Asians, which code word in the UK is the Middle Easterns.
Right.
But
But yeah, anything like that can get you in big trouble for sure. And that's one of the best things about the United States, that you can have all these extreme views. Well, it was one of the best things about the US. And then they could all be debated and discussed, and some could be tossed aside, and then you could bring in new ideas, new thoughts, new perspectives. But now the US itself even seems to be moving away from this. It seems to have forgotten how important of a value it is to have competing ideas. I think the irony here also is that the left is always pushing for diversity, and they want diversity in everything except political opinion.
Well, I would say this is where I've struggled I think the usage of the left, or that I would say it's an extreme element that's been here. But the problem is most people that identify, I would consider myself left of center. I'm a liberal. I'm socially liberal. but I'm conservative about my home. But out in the world, I'm like, hey, do your thing.
Right.
And I think that it's interesting is the oppressed groups who are screaming they weren't oppressed have become unoppressed due to the openness of our society. The only way all these groups have the voice they have is because of an open society and a free speech. They weren't oppressed. The proof that the LGBTQRSTUVWXYZ is not oppressed is because they're open to do whatever they want. You know what I mean? And people are allowed to be like, nah, I'm not down with that. But what we have is, I think, is they're trying to move into everybody's like personal interior spaces. You know what I mean? Like your free speech stops at my door. Right. My Second Amendment kicks in there. Right. You know what I mean? Like where people don't understand is that's really what it's about. Out there on the street, do what you want, man. In the public square, you're allowed to be a freak and a weirdo or a conservative or not. Inside your house, you're allowed to do what you want. Right. And that's protected. Yeah. And rightfully so. It's very interesting. And you know, I've been but it's also tied to like this weird thing going on with the abortion, right? So I've been thinking about a lot, and I heard this guy talking about it. Was the same argument used to abort babies is the same argument that was used to keep slaves. That when do they become a human, right? Like in the history of our country, like a black slave was not viewed as a human being, right? So they had to essentially be emancipated, you know, and become
meaning that they were
recognized as full human beings. And so I think it's very ironic that the same group which was the Democratic Party, or for lack of, because that's who they were arguing that slaves weren't whole people, just as they're arguing that unborn babies aren't complete life forms. It's if people aren't seeing the parallels of these things, that the same group of people that were arguing that slavery was legitimate are the same group of people that are arguing abortion's legitimate.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Right? Yeah, when you really start to look into it, it's super creepy. Yeah. And they don't want that coming. That's why, so as a purveyor of the history of my nation, or where I live, my Dharma, whatever you want to call it, one thing we don't get into is the Civil War, really. The Civil War is sort of glossed over.
Right, in terms of schools and stuff.
Well, because especially modern time, I don't know if it was so much before. You had all those books, you had to read the Red Badge of Courage, all this kind of stuff. But now, if you look at the state of modern America and, you know, mid-century 1800s United States with the arguments for states' rights, you look at it with what's going on with New York and the abortion laws and Alabama with the abortion laws, whether you're pro or con, for the sake of the intellectual argument, you need to look at like how history is repeating itself, and it's doing it through states' rights, and it's doing it through deciding when life is viewed as a complete life, and when you're viewed as a human being, which is the same thing that went on in the Civil War, and tie all sorts of economic stuff. So you could say that you could argue a lot about what the Civil War was about, was what the westward expansion and what states were going to become free states versus slave states. California was bending towards a slave state where they just had the gold rush. They were super worried about that. And you look at the thing is the new space is the technology. You could argue that the technology ideologically is the South right now, and we're having a battle to have a free and open society in the new space, which is the ones and zeros space.
Yeah, that's a very interesting comparison. Yeah.
And,
makes a lot of sense.
Well, you can if you look at, I think it's the Lincoln Douglas debate, and just remove the word slave for abortion, it almost plays out like identical. It's super sketchy. where we are as a society, because if you don't value life and you don't know where life starts and begins and all this kind of stuff, where does speech start and begin?
Right.
Like,
and we're already having that discussion.
Well, but the thing is I don't think until you figure out this other thing where how like speech is less than life. Mm-hmm. If we don't know what life's all about,
yeah, then how do you
then the speech is muddied down, but we can't use the speech to talk about what the life thing's about. You know what I mean? And it's very, I see the slippery slope, the chasm opening on this thing, and I don't know if there's a real, because they've cornered the market of thoughts.
Yeah. I'm not sure what percentage it is of videos that are viewed on YouTube, but it's a ridiculously high one. So the suggestion that you could just go somewhere else and start doing this,
no, you can't.
Successful, you can't.
Well,
so
because
they have an effective monopoly.
Well, what they have, and everyone doesn't understand, is they have the servers.
Right. That's
what balls the whole thing up. Mm-hmm. Is the server space to keep all these videos, and they have. I don't think people understand is I was checking something about it, is YouTube has like server farms like all over the world, right, with Google and all these other things to keep all this like data flowing. This data is not just spinning around in the air. Right. There's buildings where it's being kept, and electricity is required, and air conditioning is required. The power shuts off, this all stops. Mm-hmm. Which gets me into my whole thing. I'm always tripping about Tesla, you know, because it's all tied together, and that's why I think they're really shutting it down. Is the ideas are getting out of the bag, so it's a conspiracy theory to talk about.
Right. Yeah. Well, this is my first time driving in California. I've seen a lot of Tesla cars around.
Well, we don't refer to them as Teslas. They're Elon Musk mobiles.
Oh,
because I don't want Nikolai's name.
Well, I saw one Elon Musk mobile yesterday, and the guy didn't have a license plate. In it, he just had a piece of paper that said 100% emission free. So are all the rare earth materials that were used to create this car, were they all produced emission free and environmentally friendly? And
no.
Exactly. Were they maybe produced by child workers in some mine in Africa?
Quite possibly. They were mined from the hills of Afghanistan, mm-hmm, where
the lithium.
Yeah, the lithium, the cobalt, Africa, all these places. Mm-hmm. And anywhere you see United States active military forces blowing things up with their fighter planes, I would suspect they're extracting raw earth minerals for battery powered vehicles.
Exactly.
And then you get into the whole thing with the transmission lines and where the power's coming from.
Exactly.
And I have someone sent me the thing where it breaks down the carbon footprint of an electric vehicle.
Right.
Versus like a regular, like low mileage internal combustion vehicle. Mm-hmm. And it's like significantly higher when you factor in
where the
moving the minerals around the planet, process it. But how do you take raw earth minerals, mined? Yep. So mining activity equals water degradation.
Yeah. And just general environmental.
Yeah, and general environmental destruction. Mm-hmm. And then you have to process these minerals, and most processing of raw ore is toxic.
Right, you're gonna have some byproduct that you need to get rid of somewhere somehow.
You go look into gold mining and look at those big those pits of gnarly. What do they use? Sulfuric acids and all these acids to break it all down, and then the emissions from that. And then you have to transport that stuff via, and this is one of my big things, is bunker fuel used on transoceanic freighter ships.
Right.
Which is the dirtiest form of
a petroleum product.
Yeah, that you can, because it's secondhand, like a lot of, so that all that recycled oil you recycle ends up in a ship being burned out on international waters. So it's a scam.
Yeah.
Or it's, I mean, as a dude who's like thinks the planet is in peril, but it's not us sitting here talking about it. It's these guys trying to shut down our freedom to talk about it.
Yeah, I think it comes down to a lack of principles. I don't think anybody has any principles anymore. They're very willing to jump around in terms of their political position and their ideology to whatever is politically convenient, whatever is going to fulfill their agenda as quickly as possible. They're willing to jump on with that, which is very dangerous, the fact that we have all these people running around without principles. Another big one in this regard, you might have seen it actually. So Trump has been over in England on his state visit, and there were some protests against him, right? Well, after the protests, all these pictures were released of all the placards that people have been holding, just dumped all over the street.
Oh yeah, that's standard.
Yeah, so London was completely trashed by these protesters, who, some of whom you can guarantee were there because Trump is not environmentally friendly. And they were probably jumping up and down, screaming about that and climate change and everything. But then when it comes to their own environment, they completely trash it. They just left all their protest materials everywhere.
Well, I think what we're really witnessing is some sort of mid-30s Germany type of thing on a planetary scale of these. I think that where I'd go is I think they absolutely do have principles. I think the principles of this elitist cabal, cartel, demographic, whatever you want, is the elimination of like baseline humanity.
Yeah, domination is their principle.
Domination's their principle, and tapping into satanic energy is their principle. And I think one of their principles is pedophilia, and that the whole thing, the whole prescription of debasing the children. I think that's their principle, because if they were about the children, we would have an entirely different system going on here.
Yeah, that's true. Definitely.
So the people in charge aren't. I don't think. Like, I used to think for a long time that it was a conspiracy of incompetence.
Right.
That they were just idiots.
Yeah.
They just can't. And now, as I've moved through it, I see that it's completely organized to look like incompetence, but that it runs
in a certain direction.
It runs in a certain direction. You look at like how do all these, like, right, as an individual, you can stand in a city. You're here in LA, right? Your car driving, you're out in Alhambra.
Yeah.
It's madness, right?
Yeah.
It's chaos. Complete and utter. The freeways don't work. There's cars everywhere. And yet this city gets up day after day with what? How many major cities are there on the planet? 500, 1,000? I don't know. With every other major city on the planet, and functions in utter and complete chaos. And the chaos is organized to hold us all back, to make the cars not work efficiently, to cause pollution. Because
so people are more concerned about the everyday chaos in their own lives caused by these inconsequential things.
But those things are organized to keep them in constant chaos and constant confusion.
So they can actually organize politically and do something about their real life situation and the real control system that's over them.
Yeah, because most people in any sort of urban environment spend a huge amount of time fighting traffic, which pisses them off.
Right.
Which is a dark energy, right? They aren't like freely roaming around like, well, you had a great idea jamming down the interstate on my way to do whatever I had to do today.
Yep.
And voila, we could do this to make our society and it's a worldwide society now is based upon chaos, and that chaos is 100% organized from my observations now. It's not willy-nilly, because you're talking about this when you go and stand, when you look, when they tamed the Thames, right, and they put the locks and they could control how the river worked. That was what 400 years ago?
Probably something like that.
Right? They tamed the Thames, right? So they could get shipping up into the city of London and all that stuff. So they can do anything they want to do. You look at the Golden Gate Bridge and you don't think the controllers can't do what they want to do. You look at the stuff they're building, those crazy bridges over in China, and you think the controllers can't do what they want to do. You sit inside of a airplane going on a transatlantic flight and don't think the controllers can't solve all this?
I had this exact moment yesterday. So I went at your recommendation to go see the USS Iowa, and that thing was rekitted in the 1980s for the Cold War and the changing technologies and stuff like that. And they have these Gatling guns that are mounted on the side of it in the 80s with radar systems that not only could track incoming missiles, but they would also track the outgoing rounds of ammunition from the ship itself to perfectly time where they're going and where this object is coming towards the ship. So they could do that in the 80s with this sort of technology.
Yeah.
So that's the sort of artificial intelligence stuff that people are talking about today. Where if they could do that in the 80s, God only knows what they can do now.
Well, I think people have dumbed themselves down to believing that there's a level of incompetence at the top when those guys are fully like filtering out what they want when they want and using it against us in our like, oh, whoa moment. Like right when you were standing on the Iowa, I had the gnarliest, like this is the gnarliest weapon ever made. Yep. Like a battleship. Like, that's why they don't want any of this stuff around anymore. That's why those old World War II guys saved you were there, so like it was a full privately funded restoration to take it out of mothball and keep the Iowa.
Because the rest was sold for scrap.
Yeah, because when you stand on a battleship like the Iowa and get the immensity and realize the amount of people it takes to run about 1,000 people or something to run like a battleship like the Iowa. The intricacy of the human organism, and that's
exactly.
No, but so think about this is the stuff that blows me away, like with aircraft carriers and all these big machine systems based upon humans moving around. Somebody sat down, or a bunch of guys sat down with pen and paper. And drew it out and drew out the nuts and bolts and how all these things were going to fit in it. But the thing that nobody gets is it's not on the drawings, but all of it was based upon human beings interacting within this space. And when you stand on the Iowa and you're moving through it and you're like, this thing's designed for human beings to move around in it efficiently and launch projectiles like 20 miles to blow up something. And the precision of that piece of equipment lets you know that this is bullshit what's going on here.
Yeah,
it's utter and complete bullshit that everybody is taking on. It's like, oh, it's just the way it is, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just the way it is, man.
Yeah, I hate that mindset. So that's just the way it's mindset. But I had exactly the same feeling though when you are on board the Iowa, and I recommend that anybody who's in LA go to see it.
It's rad, right?
Yeah, it's very awe-inspiring, and you do get that feeling. I got it just when I was looking at the different aspects of it. Like someone designed all of this. And it all works practically perfectly. And not only did they initially design it, they redesigned it twice. They did it in the 50s and then the 80s.
Yeah.
So they re-kitted it twice.
Yeah.
So, and again, all done perfectly, all bringing in these new weapon systems.
It doesn't tip over. It floats perfectly. It shoots giant VW-sized bullets, dude. Yeah. All 12 or 9 guns at the same time, and it doesn't flip over. Yeah. Like the amount of engineering and brain power that went into something like the battleship, and that was engineering to kill people.
Right.
That's what people don't understand when they're all like, oh, this is the way it is. Our best brains on the planet are using their smarts to kill you. Like, and we sit around and be like, well, you know what we can do about it.
Yeah. That's just the way it is.
That's the way it is.
It's just the way it is.
They're going to censor the YouTube. Oh, well, dude, it's Alex Jones. So what? Oh, it's Laura Sutherland. So what, dude? She's so,
yeah.
You know?
Yeah, if we can engineer anything of that magnitude to that level of success, we can do anything. Literally anything that we put our minds to.
And dude, like, there's this book called The Cadillac Desert, right? And it's all about them putting the dams in the West. So you read about Hoover Dam.
I'm going to go there on my way back.
Dude, when you go to, I'll give you some advice on the Hoover Dam thing though, because I went, it's a nightmare. but there's a way to get around it that's way better than going down on the dam.
Oh, okay.
You stop and you go on the things on the highway, and it looks down on the dam. But don't get on the traffic. You do the first one,
right?
And then you hike the thing, and then you get to look down. But driving on the thing, dude, don't do it. It's a waste of time, and you don't get to see anything because the way it comes is you don't.
Yeah.
But when you're on the new highway bridge that's over it, you walk out to the middle and you're looking down on, then you're like, oh, whoa.
Yeah.
Because you can kind of see like the lake behind it.
And again, this is all human achievement. Human achievement
without computers.
Mm-hmm.
They built Hoover Dam. You know that when they didn't know how they were going to do it. They were just like, we're going to do it. Like that was their mindset.
Yeah.
Like when you look at like the army of human beings that descended upon what is the Black Canyon, I think is what it's called, the Black Canyon, where they picked to bottleneck the Colorado River in the 20s, whatever it was.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Same time they're building the Golden Gate Bridge, they're building all this stuff all over the planet, and we sit here in 2019 with sitting on our hands going, well, we can't solve this problem, dude.
There's another thing actually on the Iowa, I remember. It was towards the rear of the ship. It said they put in a targeting system in the 50s, and it was so accurate that they didn't even bother replacing it in the 80s. So even 30 years later, they didn't even bother replacing one of the targeting systems because it was just so good. So if we could do all this in the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, but we still have people sitting around today saying this is just the way it is, well, that's completely the wrong mindset. It's a negative mindset, and it's a backward mindset, and it's not going to push us forward as a civilization.
No, it's a failure mindset.
Definitely.
Yeah, we've been convinced to fail. As like we're underachieved under the low. What is it? The low bar of zero expectations, man.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, oh, we're not expecting. We've maxed out. Like, well, you know, Elon Musk is going to save the day, dude. Screw that guy, dude. I'm so anti Elon Musk and all that stuff, dude. Like, because people are like, oh, he's like the one dude doing something. I go, you gonna give that guy the plate? Like, here, run with it, dude. Like, we're all supposed to be running with it.
I'll give him one positive at least.
Okay.
He is pro-human.
Maybe.
He is. I would say he's pro-human. He's not like a lot of those elites that are.
I think it's
like
a smoke screen
of the world out there saying that humans are the problem.
I think he's a rope-a-dope with that stuff.
Oh, okay.
I think he's one of those dudes, and they're like, all right, you're going to be the controlled opposition guy.
Right, possibly.
You're going to be the guy who comes off like you're pro-human, so everybody can do exactly what you said. One thing about Gates is he's for us. I don't think he is. Or he wouldn't be doing what he wouldn't be trying to get to Mars. With this, like, whether you believe in space or not, like his, like, we're going to like we got some problems here to solve, Bucko.
Yeah,
like we got some real earthbound problems.
True.
So you're gonna go to Mars? Like, what do you need to go to Mars for, dude? But like, you're wasting your brain power on going to Mars. Like, when we're about to turn this rock into Mars, according to you guys. According to all you thinkers, we're here in peril, but you're focusing on going to Mars. Does anyone see oh, it's all bullshit.
Right.
You know, like that's where I'm at with the thing is like it's all.
Yeah, I guess I'm on the fence with the whole Mars expedition.
Well, I love it, the concept.
Yeah, but like you say, there are also a lot of things that we need to solve and fix on planet Earth right now.
We don't even know what's at the bottom of the ocean.
Right.
Like.
Yeah.
Like.
Why is Africa not fully developed?
Yeah, you know,
instead of just shipping vaccines over there and
killing people.
Well, go either way that you want with the vaccines, but it still doesn't solve the problem, does it? That's just a symptom of a wider problem, which is the healthcare infrastructure in Africa does not exist for the most part.
Clean water.
Exactly. So why are there not desalination plants literally lining either coast of Africa, pumping clean water?
But I'm on even the other trip is we don't need desalination plants. We need all these like rocket scientist guys to convince everyone to stop pooping in the water, which is like these infrastructure issues of like, until the vaccines aren't the answer, clean water is the answer. Like, hygiene's the answer.
Exactly. Yeah.
Running water is the answer.
Sewage systems.
Sewage systems are treatment, but But let's go to Mars.
Yeah, or Bill Gates, let's just ship a bunch of vaccines to Africa. That'll solve their problems.
Yeah, that'll solve the problem because there'll be no one left.
Well, yeah, it's just a joke.
It's an interesting time we live in, and the whole this shift is coming where I think that with this we could be the last of the free speakers.
Right, definitely. That are going to be left on YouTube.
Well, it's interesting. I was, children don't know how to write anymore.
You mean like handwriting?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I grade papers, and trust me, they don't. Nobody.
Penmanship's a thing of the past.
I don't think I've had one student over 2 semesters that has written in cursive. Not one.
Really?
Yeah.
It's all cursive's gone.
Individual letters.
Really?
Yeah.
So what? You're a teacher now?
Yeah. So I teach a small university in Oklahoma.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Which university?
It's called Cameron University.
Oh, you're allowed to shout it out. They're not going to come and fire you.
No. Don't think so.
What are you teaching?
Political science.
Poli-sci.
Yeah. So they have me teaching American government, which is hilarious. As the English do.
Yeah. Well, you probably know more about the American government than Americans do.
Possibly.
I mean, your average American doesn't have any idea what Magna Carta is all about.
Right.
They have no idea about Magna Carta. What, 1590?
Yeah, something like that.
And no concept what Magna Carta is.
Mm-hmm.
No,
where everything came from.
Yeah. People don't get the value of the free expression of bad ideas and how hard that was fought for. Mm-hmm. It's not something that's just been around forever. You can't go anywhere. You can't go to the UK and say stuff. You can't go most places and just say whatever.
And what YouTube has done yesterday is pretty much against what the First Amendment of the US Constitution says. So YouTube is no longer in line with the First Amendment of the Constitution.
No.
Primarily because they banned all the Holocaust denial accounts, which are obviously ridiculous, right? The Holocaust denial, obviously ridiculous. But people should be allowed to express ridiculous ideas, no matter what they are. And that's how we engage in political debate and solve problems.
You know what they really don't want anyone talking about is this. So did you know that we give Israel $10 million a day?
A day.
A day. The United States of America gives Israel $10 million a day. And I don't really get in on that one that much but I more and more you're starting to see what this is really about, because I'm pro people. I'm anti institutions of enslavement, right? So recently you had every Democratic candidate the other day released a video swearing their allegiance to Israel, right? Except for two candidates, Tulsi Gabbard and Cory Booker.
Oh, Cory Booker didn't either.
No, but they did tacitly. They just didn't mention the word Israel.
Right.
So we live in a country where political candidates running for president don't have to swear to uphold the values of any other nation on the planet except Israel. And I think it's very interesting. And I don't get on the whole weird jag of this, because it's designed to bunny hole you down into like anti-Semitism, which is, people don't even know what that word means either. But you can't mention that word without it shooting off all sorts of things,
right? That
you're anti-people when it's, people don't get that most Arabs are Semites, but hey, whatever, dude. And an ignorant population will accept anything as truth, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you definitely have to be careful with all those pointing out one particular demographic as the root of all the problems.
There is one demographic, the Satanists. It's us versus them.
You're not seeing any positives on their side of the political aisle.
No, I it's pretty black and white at this point. Is the Satanists are running the show, and they're trying to convince us to join their cause under the name of world peace. or whatever it is, inclusiveness
and acceptance.
Yeah,
but everything except
ourselves.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be accepting of everything but me.
Yeah, accept and include everything except dissenting opinion.
Yeah, and I'm a full, like, all for everybody kind of guy, which is so weird that you even have to, that they've used the words against us.
Right.
You know, and this weird, bizarre state of affairs where you have to actually defend yourself from nothing. You know what I mean? You actually have to be like, oh, before I talk about this, you know,
yeah, so it's created this environment of self-censorship.
I do it all the time.
Yeah,
I don't talk about all sorts of stuff on my YouTube channel that I would.
Yeah, just because you know that if it gets flagged or something, then the axe is coming down on the whole channel.
Well, now that's the new thing of the last, like, couple months. I'm super hyper aware of. Well, I got super hyper aware of that a while ago, but, like, yeah, because I have too much, like, family content and stuff that I couldn't even pull out of there and put somewhere else.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So much of it, right?
So I do think about it on that level, but, like, I think that part of me, like, I don't talk about certain issues because I just don't want to deal with the inability to have, like, a tolerant conversation about it.
Yeah.
It's the weird thing of people are so afraid of other ideas.
Yeah, so it's not only the threat of the channel itself being axed, it's the comment section is just going to descend into chaos.
I don't go to the comment section.
Yeah, so. Well, even if you don't look at it, it's still going to be going on because, as you rightly say, people can no longer accept that there is another side to the argument, that there are two sides to every coin. And that's what I really try to get over in all of my classes that I teach, which apparently seems to be a revolutionary idea, that there are two sides to every argument and you don't have to agree with everyone all the time. And that there can be dissenting views that exist within a society.
Well, you're supposed to have dissenting views. That's my big thing about it. That's what I always try to tell. I go, like, look, I change my mind about stuff all the time based upon new information.
Right.
Back and forth. Like, okay, like, well, maybe that.
Yeah, so probably the best example of that not happening is the whole Russiagate investigation. So this has now descended into complete nonsense. Yeah, I thought after the Mueller report came out and there were no further indictments, that finally we could put this thing to bed and we could be over the hill with it, done with it, but apparently not. So the Democrats are still pushing forward with this.
Well, it's a genius move because as long as people are going to not talk about the real stuff they're covering up, which is this Lincoln Douglas thing.
Yeah, well, just anything.
The war machine keeps on turning.
Yeah.
No one wants to talk about the bombs falling.
Yeah, instead of talking about issues that actually affect people's everyday lives, people are running around screaming about Russians hiding under every.
But this is what I would say to that. Nobody's running around talking about the Russians except the people sitting there, like, wasting their time on MSM. So so what they've done is they've just caused everybody to tune out.
Right.
All together and be like.
Yeah. So did you see CNN's ratings dropped off a cliff literally the day after the Mueller report came out?
Of course, because why? But who's watching any of that? That's why they're shutting all this down. Because no one's watching their stuff anyhow.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's why the YouTube algorithms now, if you search for anything, it all throws CNN's official channel, MSNBC's official channel, CBS News' official channel. It doesn't give you any regular YouTubers like us that you usually get if you search for something. It generates search results that only give you mainstream media results.
But again, what the interesting thing about, and I get why their thing is all you have to do is get to your nodal point alternative mindsets, and they all fall in, that stuff all gets eliminated. Right. That's why they're killing all these channels. Is because if you follow, I don't really follow anybody, but if you did, you would get the stuff that tangents off of their thing, which they don't like.
Right.
You know, if you're a kitty cat video follower, you're gonna get like-minded videos. That's the algorithm.
Right.
But if you type in, their thing, it's going to come into, kitty cat videos on CNN, but nobody's doing that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Everybody's got their way, their rhythm to the YouTube. They're not going into the search engine. They're going through their people and getting the suggestions and following the.
I think maybe we should have seen this coming.
I've been watching it,
when the mainstream media websites started to axe comment sections.
Oh yeah,
because there were studies done that showed that people paid more attention to the comments and to the comments more seriously than the articles of news reports. And when that all started happening and being recognized, all these mainstream outlets started to axe their comment sections because the narrative was being shifted in a direction that they were not intending it to be.
Well, I think
this is the natural evolution of that.
We've been proven that you can't trust. Thank you, Studeman. And I think that at this point is who's believing them,
right?
Like,
yeah. And as we started out with this conversation, this is the best thing that Trump has done. He has exposed the mainstream media as complete liars, and now people with the collapse of Russiagate has really been extremely damaging for them.
Yeah, it's funny how, but it's the interesting thing is how they just won't get again. It really has to be looked at through the lens of the Civil War and who the Democrats have always been. The Democratic Party has always been the same party. They just disguised themselves in the middle of the end of the last century to be liberals. To suck people who cared about the environment, people who cared about equal rights into their camp when they've always been the same group. I mean, LBJ was super clear about it. So was Malcolm X. When these guys were in... And
then when Malcolm X voiced those opinions...
He's gone.
Paid the ultimate price.
You look at the slandering now of Martin Luther King by the SJWs. That's insanity.
Yeah, I think the whole idea of going back into an individual's past and trying to dredge up one thing that they said or did when they were 20 years old and now they're 56 or whatever, and now you're trying to
But that's again is the ignorance of anyone not knowing who Martin Luther King was. He was a womanizer. He was an alcoholic. Don't confuse the message with the messenger.
Right.
You know what I mean? If we're going to do that, then they're all gone.
Exactly.
Well,
because that's another thing about Trump. Trump never portrayed himself as one of these evangelical Christian Republicans, the sort of family man Republican. He never portrayed himself as that to begin with, which is why a lot of these attacks completely failed against him as a figure.
Well, the interesting thing with him is he doesn't care.
Mm-hmm.
Again, he's such an interesting dichotomy because at the same time, I can't hitch my wagon to him, but I can't deny his go get him, dude.
Right.
Yeah, when I watch,
I'm kind of in the same position.
I know he's just another puppet, but I'm also MAGA, dude.
Right.
Go get him, dude. Let's go mix it up. But I also ultimately know that if you go with that mindset and think that dude's going to solve the problems, then you victimized yourself once again to oh, that guy's got it. No, he's just another dude.
Yeah, I think with the foreign policy stuff, you've seen that he's struggled the most to really do what he said on the campaign trail.
Well, because that's the world.
Exactly. Yeah, and he actually came out and said there's a military-industrial complex. He actually uttered those 3 words a couple weeks ago, which was interesting. So I think he's recognized that he's run into this.
Well, he might pull a kamikaze mission.
In what respect?
He might pull it you know what?
I'm going to shut all these bases overseas.
I'm going to expose it for what it Eisenhower laid it all out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
if you really look at his whole speech, not the one they parroted, when he talks about the intellectual elites and the whole thing and that other part of the speech, he basically calls out that there's going to be a bunch of Bill Gates types that are coming behind the military-industrial complex and to be aware of those dudes.
Yeah.
The military-industrial complex is a big problem. Be aware of it, but it's the guys that are coming behind them that are the real trouble, which is these intellectuals.
And then it's going to affect every aspect of life.
Yeah, it's all been laid out, and then you look at what Kennedy. You know, he might have been on a kamikaze mission, or he was just an idiot. I don't know.
Right.
It's hard to say with him.
Yeah.
Since he was on meth the whole time. I mean,
yeah, he was a little all over the place in terms of his private life and stuff.
You know, I think it's the the camel. Though they did wipe out all those dudes, didn't they? Real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's this interesting thing where if you really look at the Democratic Party's makeover in the 50s and LBJ in the 60s and this whole thing is they're the same group of people they were during slavery, and they became the Dixiecrats, and then you look at their stances on like all sorts of stuff. They hide it.
Yeah, I think that was actually reflected in Hillary's campaign. So Hillary didn't go campaign in these states because she just assumed that they were going to vote Democrat, and then Trump did go and campaign there, and they flipped. I think there's just this underlying arrogance, which is
well, they're on, and we see the dangers of this weird thing with the Electoral College is that if they can carry California and New York and Florida and Illinois, like who cares what anyone else has to say?
Right.
And I go, if you've lived in the rest of I was talking to a gal today at my swimming class who's from Iowa. She's the mom from Iowa. Like nobody wants what California has except the sunshine.
Yeah.
Like nobody wants California policies or California healthcare or anything except the sand and the beach. That's all they want from California is the sunshine, because the winter sucks out in the rest of the country. So people are drawn to California for the weather and the beaches and the scenery. They're not here for the politics. Right. In fact, and so that California has such a narcissistic internal view of itself that thinks that people want their bad policy, which I live in California. I don't want it.
Right.
I don't want to have to step over more homeless people in tents. Like it's insanity out here. I do want to send my child to school. Not going to happen in California. Like California's gone. I couldn't advise anyone to move to California. You're insane.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, it looks
you're living in Oklahoma.
Yeah. Yep.
Right?
Yeah, it's just that underlying narcissism, like you say. But California is so great because of what we did. We brought this about, when in actual fact, like you say, well, it might actually just be the natural kind of
I don't think people even know the history of California. That California was going to go slavery, by the way, and narrowly voted to stay non-slave. By the way, like narrowly, like they were almost right there. Like if you really look into California in that time. Very interesting from the gold rush on and what was going on in San Francisco. And
it's the only state I've ever driven into which has a checkpoint before they
the agricultural checkpoints.
Is that what that is?
Yeah.
That was a little strange.
Yeah. You know, we had the fruit fly thing once upon a time in the 80s. And now we have agricultural checkpoints at our state borders.
So they're trying to stop anybody from bringing in certain produce or animals.
Yeah. That's the guys. Yeah.
Strange.
It's very strange.
Yeah. I think they'd be very quick to slam that shut in the event of an emergency.
Well, guaranteed is I think that's the old way of thinking. I think that's based upon an older model of I think they just flipped the switch. And it just they know it, like they don't even worry about anyone leaving. That they flip the switch, the thing shuts, it clicks down.
Yeah.
You don't need a checkpoint.
Right.
You just need to turn off the pump.
Yeah.
They're like, that's all you got to do is just cause a traffic jam on the and lock down the freeways. Now what?
Yeah.
That's one bad red light away.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole city gets shut down because of fender benders.
I can attest to that, and I've been here for about 48 hours.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So people are all like, "Oh, this." No, all they really have to do is mistime a couple lights with their little
right,
and everybody's stuck.
Red, and then everybody stops.
And no one's healthy enough to walk anymore. Definitely. Everyone's obese. No one has any water. Like, what do you think how water gets here? Like, what? That's a little shutdown of the computers in all these Southwest states. And then you look at, I mean, you're out there in Oklahoma. I mean, look at the aquifer up there, dude. The water is sketchy.
Mm-hmm. I think they're fracking out in Oklahoma as well.
Yeah, they're fracking everywhere, man.
Yeah.
Fracking up the place, dude.
Yeah. I have a question for you.
What's that?
What do you think about the fact that UFOs have gone mainstream in the past couple of months?
You look into you look into the thing. I think it's a giant psyop. Mm-hmm. I don't believe in them. I used to be a fool like that. I think it's all a con. Mm-hmm. The more and more I don't believe in space anymore. I want to actually like. But I'm more into like the interdimensional presence of like demons and all that kind of stuff. Okay, I think is what the aliens really are. So I think if you look at the technology and the thing, I think what they have to do because so many people are waking up is they're going to have to pull a giant psyop, right? Mm-hmm. And drop in a couple buildings. That did it. Everyone on 9/11 was like, oh my God, and like around the world went, oh my God, at the same time. So
hands up and said, "Do what you want, save us,
right?" So you look at where we are now. Is that exploding type of thing? It's not going to have the same effect because we've all been through it. Everyone's spent enough time debating it. Most people either know it was a con job or you're like, the government will save me. So those two camps. Aren't either one of them's not going to be affected by some sort of thing because those government save me guys aren't going to be worried because the government's going to save them, and the ones that know that it's a con job aren't going to go with the government. So they're going to have to do something to get everybody right.
Right.
So what better way than some sort of like Marvel comic book? The aliens are here. Mm-hmm. Like, oh yeah, they saw them on the fighter deck. It's all come out now. Yeah, Stephen Greer. Yeah, David Wilcock. All these con jobbers, man.
Although Greer does argue that most of them are military projects.
Guaranteed. Yeah, but I think that's the angle is they're going to do it with their own gear. Hmm. And it's going to look, they're just going to unveil their like, I mean, I watched the Marvel comic, Captain America, Winter Soldier.
Okay.
Winter Soldier lays it all out.
Yeah.
All of it.
So what happens? I have not seen it.
Basically the premise of, spoiler alert, if you guys haven't watched this one. So, the government has been taken over by the insiders, right? And they're building this elaborate defense mechanism, which is these giant floating Skynet-like aircraft carriers, which are the blimps, that we already have up. Mm-hmm. And that these are going to protect everybody. First thing they got to do is like kill a bunch of people to get everybody on board, this whole thing. And it's all about the technology capturing everybody and the benevolence of the higher ups, knowing that people ultimately need world peace and that they just have to pay the price type of thing, and that it's all dialed in. And it's all late that I've been tripping out on because I've been kind of going into the thing because they're good entertainment, I realize, but also the thing of like, it's all, this is the one thing I'm totally convinced of. The evildoers, the Satanists, whatever you want to call them, in order for them to do what they have to do, they have to get you to invite the vampire right? It's the free will choice, right? You have to invite the vampire into your house. So they have to tell everybody, well, that's what we're up to. These are fake alien invasions, this, that. The aliens are coming. Here, shoot yourself up, but we'll give you the insert if you want it. If you don't want it, that's on you. That's your free will choice to ignore the information, right? You look at the white papers. You look at the manifesto of the New Zealand shooter. It's all laid out in there. What's exactly going on. The trolling of the whole thing. You look at the whole thing. They have to lay it all out. And where were we? Oh, the aliens.
Yeah.
So they have to con job everybody. And I'm convinced at this point, in 2019, the aliens would have revealed themselves one way or the other.
Right.
One way or the other. If they're the evildoer, the evil aliens, they would have come and hijacked us by now.
Right.
They would have done it. And if they were the benevolent good guy aliens, they would have revealed themselves too, and
probably just said, "Screw you, you're too fuck off."
I don't think so. My basic premise is that humans, at the end of the day, are good.
Yeah,
and
I believe that too.
I've gone full circle on the human thing too. I think that coincides with the two things, right? Like if you believe in the alien thing, there's a certain denial of the humanity thing. Oh, the aliens, this higher life form coming to the planet. So our little life form's sort of puny and lame and sort of stuck on this ball and not really worthy of this whole thing. So the aliens, one way or the other, are coming. As I've removed the aliens from my own personal space, I realized the beauty of the humans, that it all is the humans have all the interdimensional travel abilities, the ability to do all this stuff that we've been convinced to deny ourselves. And that your average person, at the end of the day, doesn't want war, doesn't want violence, doesn't want to hurt the children, doesn't want dirty drinking water, doesn't want toxic food. All anyone wants to do is go picnicking with their family on a Sunday and be left alone.
Exactly.
I think that's what all humans want.
Yeah.
And that there's just this small, teeny, 1/1,000,000th of a percentage of these a-holes at the top who are evil, and they've convinced people that no, dude, you get this picnic if you join us on the evil thing, and people are like, oh, really? I think it's simpler. I think we overcomplexify it because we want it to be bigger than us.
Yeah, and we've spent a lot of time talking just here about how awesome humans are and what we can achieve. We really can do anything, so we don't need to be sitting around waiting for the aliens to come and save us.
No, or come and kill us.
Yeah, and just
we can do either one of those to us on our own.
Exactly.
We're either going to exterminate ourselves as a world's culture, or we're going to save ourselves as a world culture. But I don't think humans go.
The thing to remember is that we have the ability to do either of those things. So we need to make a conscious choice to do the right thing. And I think that's where we come to what you were talking about in some videos a while back, the participation party.
Yeah.
And being part of a group that participates in the wider world and in the political world. And if you have good ideas or ideas that you think are good, get out there and participate.
Well, I think that participation even rolls back to the dinner table. I'm still, as my recent journey says, it really is about the dinner table and what happens at your dinner table. I mean, my whole dinner table blew apart, but it's all come back together. You know what I mean? We've done the deep work on it, to bring ourselves back to the dinner table. And you realize why a society is promoting broken families, what's happened. You don't need to look any further than the Black community in the United States of America and see that a broken family equals a broken community, and a broken community spirals on itself and eats itself. And then you get to move the cops in, and you don't need to have any supermarkets there, and you have food deserts, and now your education system's falling apart because there's no families.
Yeah, I think family is very important. I definitely would say that I am as grounded and on track as I am in life because of my family.
Sure.
My parents, which I had lived with practically my whole life before I moved to the US. I think just having that stable bedrock of a life at home is very important for humans to develop into successful people and successful individuals in the wider world.
Well, I think it's this thing, right? It's like we're herd animals. If you want to use the animals, we're herd beings.
Mm-hmm.
We're herd beings, but like the herd being without like our little like packs within the herds doesn't make the herd work good. That's bad English right there, I think.
No, I get what you're saying.
But like, I think that if you don't have a conducive family structure, so dump alcohol, dump promiscuity, dump television, dump bad value systems, bad education on a family, like salt it, break them apart, all those people are going to fall into the larger group, but they don't have any center within themselves. So they're not actually like a bunch of people working from a centered point of, they're a bunch of disconnected people connected under disconnection.
Yeah.
Yeah. We see it in our society. It's like, how do you go join a group of people if your base home life is disruptive?
Exactly. I watched quite a few clips of reality shows and stuff like that on YouTube, and there are all these shows like World's Strictest Parents and stuff like that, where they send kids to go live with a family that has really strict parents, right? And the kids that always get sent to these houses or these camps, whatever it is, like a bad kid kind of training camp thing, they're always described in the intro as only living with their mom or only living with their dad. And they come from these kind of broken homes, and they go into the background of how half of their, I guess, upbringing is being completely lost.
Well, I mean, I've experienced it recently with my own son. It's like him.
I mean, do you worry about that for Owl as you?
Well, that's, I mean, we brought it all back together. Like we went in and solved the riddle, so to speak. And I can see the difference of Owl on a unified front,
right,
versus where he was 4 months ago on a divided front. It's a totally different human being because he can't. I see it like one without the other. Just it doesn't work. And it doesn't work for the parent either. Right. Like I can't be a good parent to Owl without my counterweight in the same time space with me, because I need I need the female energy too to be a good parent. Like it was funny, like this morning we were getting everybody ready for school and Owl was losing his mind about something minor league, but I'm the line holder. I'm like, no, and he's crying, and I'm like, no, we're gonna work to the thing. Mom comes and it's like, she doesn't like that. Like it's her inherent nature not to be stoked on him crying and like he's crying about putting one car in the bag versus another. It's like nothing, but like if you let that go, and ultimately he wanted the boundary answer. Right. He knew what he wanted. Yeah. He just couldn't get it there with his little morning mind and the whole thing. So I had to sit at the table, and Power Mom comes through to like counterbalance my energy, her energy. But if it was left to either to me, I'm like hardline about it. If it's left to her, she's soft about it. So we got to meet in the middle. But we also need each other's counterweight after the thing to be like, wow, you did good. You know what I mean? Like you did good. And now I get what you're, because I've experienced operating alone as a single parent. It sucks. It's the worst thing you could ever experience as a human being. I've been through a lot of lame stuff in my life, but being operating as a single parent is a disaster. Right? Because
is it just because, like you say, it's so out of balance?
It's totally out of balance, and you don't have the counterpart.
Everything's either going this way or that way,
and you don't have someone to regulate what's going on. You're just constantly in. There's no like, hey, am I like, is this right, wrong? Like you're just boom, all through the thing. You know what I mean? So it becomes this. So I get where, and then you end up checking out. You're like, dude, there's points of the day where you're like, I can't anymore because I'm just in deep, and then it's
so just go ahead and do it.
Yeah, here, eat whatever you want. You know, when you're trying to hold the line about certain things that you know, whether it's the food, whether it's the screens, whether it's all of this stuff. It's
I think that's a kind of a wider life point. Just trying to keep a balance in life.
Well, but what the thing is what I've learned is if you're not willing to go in and solve the problem at the dinner table and really get in on that and ride out the arc of it, the disaster, the whatever it is, if you're going to quit on it, how are you ever going to function with the rest of the world and have that? Because it's not easy out there. Life is brutal, man, and it's this thing. But if you're broken on your base level, you carry that brokenness with you to all your interactions,
right?
Because you're incomplete. It's easy to be a single person with no family and not have any, like, that's why they want everyone single and alone. Right. The minute you throw in family, a child, a partner, all of a sudden you have to think outside the box. You have to be super creative with your thing, and you can't be a narcissist.
Yeah, and you can't be selfish anymore.
You can't be selfish anymore. And so I think that if I look at my own experience, like, yeah, that's part of the learning curve, especially when you have your first child, is you forget to take care of yourself. You just lose yourself in this new dynamic. And you have to go through this huge process of life force, of calamity. I think that we're programmed, especially in the West, to believe that it's all supposed to be easy.
Right.
And it's not. We don't get any growth without it all falling apart.
That's actually kind of what happened to me in New Mexico in
what
terms
happened?
of my academics. So I was originally there for a PhD, right?
Okay.
I ended up cashing out early with a master's degree, which turned out to be my second master's. I didn't really need it, but at least I got out. So about maybe halfway through the program, it suddenly occurred to me that everything was going to be based around statistics and statistical analysis, which is not what I wanted to do on any level. That's kind of how American political science is. It's all about stats.
Sure.
So it was kind of sold to me as if you do stats 1 and stats 2, you'll be good. Well, it turned out that even a class called American politics was all about stats as well. So my grades started going crashing and burning, so to speak. So I had to pretty much figure out a new life plan and a way to get out of the University of New Mexico and a way to still follow my dreams here in the US. So, but without all of that falling apart, I wouldn't be where I am now, for sure, which is in a great job, in a great little town, and really enjoying everything. So
you found your space.
Exactly.
But you had to go through the pain.
Yeah.
The unknowing.
Yep.
Yeah, that's they've convinced everyone to short circuit that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're going to have to do it. No matter what. That's the thing. It's like a world culture. Like, we're going to have to do this thing. It's too interconnected now. Mm-hmm. You could have all your spasms of borders and armies marching and this and that, but like we're too interconnected as a world culture to like be. You can't have it. You can't have these nations of intolerance running amok. You can't have like Saudi Arabia oppressing women and chopping heads off, mm-hmm. and have on another part of the planet like a free society, and then on another part like a Venezuela like mm-hmm. starving people to death, while they have more resources than anyone.
Right. Yeah, it's all these contradictions that exist in the world. And do you remember I seen that guy on Instagram, that artist who does those pictures?
Oh yeah, no, I still follow his all stuff.
That stuff just blew my mind completely in that he juxtaposes like a picture of a kid playing on one side, then on this side he'll have a picture of a kid in a war zone covered in dust. And that perfectly illustrates our modern world.
Yeah, no,
and
it's
these underlying contradictions and all the issues that exist beyond our own line of sight, I guess you could say.
I think they're occurring within us. I think that's why I think that's the why I liked it on a certain level. Where we're at is it truly is the contradictions lie within us, which is what we have to take out in the into the world. I think that's if we talk about what they're trying to shut down with the YouTubes and the communication via the digital media, is they want it mono, but that's not human.
Right. Yeah, it's not. We are very different.
Well, I can hold the two opposing ideas in the same space.
Right.
I can be
Which apparently a lot of people can.
I can be pro homosexuality outside of my house on the basis of freedom, but totally opposed to it within my house based upon my
or any sort of lifestyle.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like I hold those two ideas in the same thought space. I am pro doing your thing. Just don't bring it into my house.
Right.
But they're two totally opposing ideas. Because me personally, but on the other side, I would never be against anybody doing their thing.
Right.
And I wouldn't even mean you can't come to my house. I mean, just we leave all that at the door out there. I tell you that thing I had at that weird speaking thing where the one dude I was on the panel with was this gay conservative guy. And they were slamming him. And I was like, this is the irony is the liberals are slamming the gay conservative, but the conservative liberal's going to defend him on the stage. And that's what I did. I defended this guy. What are you doing? And it wasn't about it. I was like, why are you slamming this human being? He's not allowed to have his own mix. You know what I mean? I think that's where I'm convinced that in our society, the ones who are going to actually break the paradigm are the lesbians.
Okay.
Because they're not going to buy into the dudes, the bearded dudes in skirts getting on their action.
What's been really interesting on that sort of level is the outcry of female athletes.
Yep. They're not going to put up with it.
Right.
Because you can't be for women and for transgender taking over women's stuff. Women have the right to be women and do their thing. And you're denying scholarships and access. That's where I see the interesting thing in our society going. Is more and more we're doing this exclusion-inclusion thing. You have large groups of people being excluded by inclusion of small groups of people, which is how does that work?
Yeah, everything is being weighted in favor of the minority, whatever it may be.
Yeah, it's become minority rule.
Yeah, which is what the US is trying to avoid, or it was trying to avoid in its founding.
Yeah,
minority
but it was
rule.
never that's the thing. It was never minority exclusion at the same time. It was just no minority rule.
Yeah,
you're allowed to be a minority and do your thing. We've fought wars over this within our country. That's where. So, but another thing I always trip on, people don't understand is the same time we're freeing the slaves in the United States Congress, we're prescribing genocide of the Plains Indians.
Right.
You know what I mean? No one wants to talk about that, do they? Let's talk about transgender rights, but let's not talk about genocide of the original people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The hypocrisies. I look at our society as we get to live in the duality of it. We get to live in the freest society ever, made upon the bones of utter horror. But if we don't use the freedom to acknowledge the bones to build a new thing, then we've desecrated those who have paid the ultimate price by our manifest destiny and all these archaic thought forms. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like Manifest Destiny was a mixed bag.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Ups and downs to that sort of
a lot of ups and downs. I mean, but you could argue that the Transcontinental Railroad was the true manifestation of the bad side of Manifest Destiny. And you could argue that there was real good sides of it too. I mean, right. It was coming. Like when you read about what was they took the Red Cloud. They took Red Cloud and those gnarly Indian, those original people leaders from the Plains Indian. They took them to Washington. Those guys were like, oh, if we'd only known this was in Washington, the arms manufacturing industry, we never would have like even battled you guys. Like, we just didn't know. And I think we're living in the same thing as people right now. Is we just don't see the monster over the horizon. And if we did, we would be like, oh, whoa, dude, we better not kick back. Yeah.
And the very slippery slope that we currently appear to be on when it comes to all these things.
Yeah,
free speech issues and.
Well, once the free speech goes and they shut down everybody's access point, like then they can start doing their other hanky panky.
Right. Yeah. As soon as people cannot get the message out that something negative is going on, whatever it may be, well, then they're free to carry on doing it.
Oh yeah, it's a very, you know what? This is the one thing I've been tripping on the political front is the men's requirement to be responsible.
Okay.
All right. So this whole thing with the abortion's been 100%, and I don't think people see the genius of what's happened. Men have been totally let off the hook.
Yeah.
And it's been made into a woman's right issue. But I go, how come men aren't being held accountable for their requirement to be responsible? Because I get where you don't get to have the argument without the requirement of men take responsibility, because men don't have to impregnate women.
Right.
You can definitely require a certain reality before you insert yourself in a female and be like, this is how this is going to go, however this turns out. But men have been let off the hook 100%. So I think the argument politically and culturally has been totally shifted away from a level of required responsibility. You as a man have a requirement to be responsible for your semen, let's say. Right?
Your activities.
Right? Your activities, whatever you want. And to have moved it over to this after the fact thing is the equivalent to me as finding the cure for cancer versus the cause.
Right.
Let's find the cause of pregnancy.
Right.
Versus the cure, the solution to the unwanted pregnancy. Let's find the cause to unwanted pregnancy, which is well, promiscuity based upon pornography and the objectification of women. So you have a society that wants to talk about these after the fact issues when let's talk about it on the front end. Like we have a bunch of men that have been programmed to treat women like sex objects and just fornicate your way through it and not take any responsibility. There's no like advisory warning on the beginning of the pornography of like, hey, if you engage like when you get a skateboard, there's a sticker on there that says this using this thing, and there's a little guy falling and hitting his head. If you use this piece of equipment, you're subject to like injury, dude. Right? There's no like preamble on the beginning of pornography. It's like, hey, you know what? If you just go and participate in this thing without the proper safeguards, you could get one of these. And and you're being required to be responsible for it. So my angle on it is like, let's let the women off the hook. I don't know. But let's charge men with murder for an aborted fetus. Let's let the women off the hook.
Okay.
Let's do a DNA test on the aborted fetus and charge men with murder. Call me crazy.
The ultimate responsibility.
Yeah, the ultimate responsibility. Let's just shift the whole thing over. Let's make men culpable for this. Let's run a DNA test. Let's round them up and go, look, dude, you're serving time. You banged some chick. You got her pregnant. You didn't stand up to the thing. You didn't take responsibility for your semen, and you've ended a life. And you're going to jail. And she gets to go do whatever she wants to do because you objectified her and you didn't take care of her, and you're a bad man.
Right.
But we put it on the burden on these women who are alone. Like, wait a minute.
Yeah, this child didn't just come out of nowhere.
Yeah, she didn't just get pregnant on her own.
Right.
But we're not going to talk about any of that. We're going to talk about it after the fact when there's some scared girl sitting around being like, I don't know. I don't know. There's nobody to help me. I'm on my own. I live in a broken community. I mean, you look into that issue as most of these girls are living in broken communities where there is no support network. So yeah, it makes total sense for them to go down there and do whatever they're doing. Because, well, who's going to help them? When I go, let's roll the thing back and let's hold men accountable. Let's make the law like that.
Looking at the cause.
Yeah, let's look at the cause.
Yeah. And like you said, we need to do that in all aspects of society.
Yeah, we're not looking at the cause of these situations, and then we're blaming the wrong people, and then we're going, this person bears all the responsibility, and those people are going, hey, wait a minute, I didn't do this on my own. Yeah, I'm a participant of a bad decision and whatever, but like, it's hard for me to go down these avenues because no one's looking at it the right way. And it's causing friction within our society that I go is by design. Mm. If you look at politically, it's designed to cause friction. It's right, because if the responsibility was shifted to the preamble to the act, well, now we're talking about a different thing.
Right.
Now we're talking about like, hey.
This is my thing with guns in the US. So instead of looking at guns and saying, well, guns are the problem. Well, what is causing somebody to walk into a school and start shooting people? Why does somebody think that is the solution to their problem? What has caused them to be in that state to begin with? Instead of just looking to the guns and say, well, if he didn't have a gun, he wouldn't have done it. Well, he went on a murderous rampage. And we see this happen in other countries as well. China, people go on knife rampages. Yeah. So what is causing somebody to act in that fashion? And I think in the US, there is definitely, or I guess in the UK as well, maybe the Western world, there is a glorification of violence in our culture. And you see it everywhere. And in the US, I'd argue it's a very militarized society as well. Everywhere you look, I haven't seen many in California, but when I lived in New Mexico, there are a ton of ads to join the military. So come and join this branch of the military, come and join that branch of the military.
Sure.
And then you have police officers in the US. Many of them have been over in Iraq. They come back, they join a police force, and suddenly they think they're at war again, and they pull somebody over and think they might have found Saddam Hussein in the trunk or something. And it just starts this cycle of violence. Which you need to look at the cause of what's happening here with all these different events.
Well, I think you got two different things. I think the mass shooting thing's something else entirely. So let's talk about that first, because that's on my mind. So how come the latest mass shooting didn't get any play?
What mass shooting is this?
The one in Virginia Beach.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Okay, you heard about it.
Yeah.
Why aren't they touting that around for gun control? Why?
Yeah, and there was another one.
No, but
this one I don't know the answer.
So in Virginia Beach last week, some dude went in and shot up a building, killed 12 people or 11 people, and he got killed.
The disgruntled worker, right?
Yeah. But why isn't it getting any play under the big gun control thing?
I have no idea.
You can ask. You know the answer to the question.
I guess he was a left-leaning individual.
No, and even better than that, he was black.
Oh, okay.
So it's not all crazy white men, right? So a black dude went in and shot all these people up with handguns.
Okay. Do you know, I haven't actually seen a picture of the gun.
I did. I got curious because I'd seen the stuff coming out in my YouTube feed on like the things. I'm like, oh, what happened in Virginia? I have some friends in Virginia Beach, the whole thing. So I was like, oh, what happened in Virginia Beach? And then it was like that early part, and I like yesterday or 2 days, yesterday or the day before, I was like, oh, whatever happened to that? I haven't heard anything about that. And I was like, oh, I wonder why. And I was like, I bet it's because of one of two reasons. Either it was like some extreme terrorist, or it was a person that demographically not supposed to fit into the narrative of all crazy white men. Sure enough, you look up, it's this. I looked, this name was Dewan, so I go, all right, let me see.
Right.
And sure enough, it was some bummed out black dude. I don't know.
But that was the same a couple months ago with there was one guy and a transgender guy.
The transgender guy shot up the school.
Again, another one that didn't get any airtime or any kind of hype. Because, as you said, it doesn't fit into this pre-constructed narrative.
Well, the narrative is no one wants to look at the narrative. They're all, I think, can be traced on that level. Can all be traced to the pharmaceutical industry. I think you have people walking around on serotonin uptake inhibitors, and they're, you know, that most people don't understand those psych drugs are basically LSD without the visuals.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're like jacking their mind. All of the things on the warning labels are like could cause suicidal thoughts, and mass murder. But let's give it to you for your problems.
You remember when Alex Jones debated Piers Morgan on CNN, and the second that Alex Jones brought up psychotropic drugs and psychiatric drugs, Piers immediately tried to change the subject.
Well, yeah, because they're all sponsored.
In his ear, he's hearing.
Well, the MSM, the mainstream media, is all sponsored by pharmaceutical companies.
Exactly.
So we look at this thing of like, no one wants to talk about like what's going on. You have an overindulged. You have one of the movie heroes is Quentin Tarantino, one of the bloodiest movie makers of all time, and everyone touts him off as like rad, dude. But Inglourious Bastards are going to an awesome film. It's just nothing but violence. Good film. Like I can get behind it as an adult. But I don't want to see like, so that's a celebrated filmmaker known for gore. Yeah. You have our most popular video games are all first-person shooter games. Yeah. You have you looked at what's on Netflix lately, dude? Like they're all like about how to murder people and kill people and all of this. And you look at it like,
and then they're the same people that jump up and down when there is a school shooting and say, "Oh my God, we need to ban guns."
Yeah. Well, while they're using guns and
they're producing all these movies.
Yeah. So it's the level of hypocrisy is right there. You throw in the fact they don't want to talk about like depression in our society and all the drugs they're putting all these people on. Boom, you have mass shootings. And then, but I think on the lower level, the community-based stuff, which would be the police interactions with these broken societies, you have again promotion of violence against police. You have a group of people that have been both split to be in opposition to each other, and that they're both in fear of each other. So your average black motorist is terrified of the cops, does not behave properly to their own infraction, and you could definitely argue they're being targeted by a group that's been that has the opposite. That's like, these people hate me and are out to get me, so I'm going to go ride them hard and like screw this, and I'm not getting any support, and the community hates me, so like, oh well, you know. And I think that if again it gets to this thing of families, if you were family-based society, you wouldn't have fewer police interactions, and you wouldn't need the police in your community because the community would police itself.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
it would
you don't
already be a complete unit that is functioning efficiently.
Yeah.
It would only be the occasional outlier instead of the whole society.
And that's why you would have your constable to go round up the outlier. You go, okay, look, we have a community. We're all taking care of each other. This dude over here is out. She's not playing ball, man. Yeah. But like this weird, but then you look at society where like, because all of our tax money is going to pay off the debt of the fiat currency, most of these communities don't have any money except police revenue generated by traffic stops. Right. So you look at what was going on in Ferguson, for example. You have a community that has a white police force that is generating money for the civic entity that controls the black community. And they are mandated by their bosses to go generate revenue for the community, which is the black motorists, which I would be pissed. So we look at this thing. We're again because the black community's disenfranchised itself because they've bought into it. They bought into the lack concept, the hip hop thing of the bling versus the true bedrock of society, which is strong family units, right? Like it's hip to be like, the rappers promote it.
Yeah, I was going to say, have you listened to any modern music recently?
Disgusting.
It's all just promoting drug use and these sorts of negative lifestyles.
But you look at
violence.
Who's in charge? Who's produced? Who's putting this music out there?
Right.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about who produced NWA. Let's talk about all these. Well, this is coming from the white patriarchy, by the way. So when people want to bitch and moan about like the situation with these demographic communities, let's look at who's causing them to destroy themselves. It's not me. It's the guy selling you records.
Right.
And the people who've been hired to make the music to get into your mind to destroy your own community.
And there are examples for that for all demographics as well that you could kind of break down and look at.
Oh yeah, I mean it's right here. I don't think it's a race ethno specific thing. I think
definitely
it's a human deal, and we've allowed ourselves to shortchange. Again, I go back to why they're convincing people that family's not the way to go, because it's a lot of work. It requires a certain amount of like fortitude, but there's a thing where like if you don't know what it is to hold a child that's yours, you don't have any skin in the game.
Right.
You literally don't have any skin in the game. So,
but if everybody's in a family unit looking after their family unit, well, then they're perhaps less likely to go and knock on the door of a credit card company and go and buy lots of things that they might not otherwise buy and keep the wheels turning.
Yeah, they might want to stay on the family farm and
exactly
and all this stuff
instead of going out and spending their money on everything else that they don't actually need.
Yeah, so it's this weird thing of like, what's the jumping off point versus the and again, I go, I think you have to look at yourself and be like, okay, like this is what I can do to like break free of the thing and not blame. You know what I mean? Like they've got this weird thing where like, well, I get to blame the degradation of the planet on the petroleum companies, but I'm not going to take any responsibility for driving a car. It's them.
Right.
When it's like, no, it's up to me to like kind of make a peace with it and figure out how to like, that's how you get all these electric vehicles based upon extraction, their new thing. Like people don't look like, people want to hype like wind power. I want to believe in it, but when you get into the amount of raw materials needed to build a wind turbine and the extraction required
just to actually manufacture
one of those giant things,
and even then, when you put them in the ground, they're not very efficient.
They're not efficient either. Well, again, it's this thing of I always hammer people on. People don't understand that as long as you're using copper transmission lines, you have an inefficient way of moving energy. It's not efficient. Most of it bleeds off, man. So I look at the thing as again, these problems have been solved already. They're all in the United States Patent Office. Trump's big promise was he was going to free up all that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer that like we need to have an open patent moratorium for like 20 years. All technology's free, open source for a hot minute. Minus the bombs.
Just see what people can come up with and improve upon.
Well, I think if it wasn't for the big oil companies and the big battery companies and the big fake electric companies like Elon Musk, the only thing I'll give Elon credit for is he open sourced the engine.
Oh, okay.
He did open source the technology for the vehicles that have Nikolai. I will give him that. He did open source that for a limited period of time.
So you think that's the way forward with all sorts of technology, to open source? And
I think
it all out there.
I think technology belongs to like the world. I'm a Nikola Tesla on that. I think the technology comes from the source, and it belongs to all of us. And I think that those who free the technology deserve to be held to acclaim and take care of and elevated. But I don't believe that the interest-bearing fiat currency system of technology is an appropriate use of technology. I think the Edison model versus the Tesla model is all that needs to be looked at. And why we're enslaved is it's all energy. I think if you freed up the thing, your average person would realize that they could probably put together their own Tesla coil and harvest their own energy locally, remove all the transmission lines, no need for giant fires caused by Southern California Edison that burned down our communities, no need for transmission lines, no need for extracting copper from the ground for that. And that everyone could have energy to free themselves up, to get the pumps working, to get the water clean, to do all these things. But we're going to be constantly told to be in a state of lack.
Right.
And who got to decide that technology gets to be held in patents? That's an arbitrary law of people with pieces of paper.
Exactly.
Well, we don't have to agree to that as a society.
Yeah.
We can be like, no, we need to. And
a lot of that stuff also originated on the internet. The idea of open source code and technologies, which again might speak to why the internet is being targeted to such a degree.
Well, I think you look at what the Article 13 is, right, with the trademark infringement stuff. As an open source guy, I'm a full believer in open source, and I could argue intellectual property. I could argue creative property has the right to be protected more than intellectual property, because intellectual property comes from the collective. You know what I mean? We built a university system with our resources of the community to educate people who are farmers. I know this is a dumbed down version of it all, but the whole concept of the university was the kid comes off the farm, he gets to go to university to raise his parents' ability of living with his mind.
Right.
And this is embraced by the community. It raises everybody's ability of living. The next generation's not digging ditches on the farm. They're using their electric ditch digger, and then they get to go to the university and then raise it all up. So eventually, everybody's free. And we're building rockets to Mars.
Right.
I don't get how you build rockets to Mars without freeing everybody on the planet first.
Right. But what are we going to do with all of these, the problems with automation that are coming in terms of employment? Automation is looking like it's going to be threatening all aspects of employment, all aspects of life. So what are people going to do? Because it's going to take a while before we get to any sort of utopia where people are just free to do as they please, engage in creative endeavors.
Well, I would say that the thing is for people to understand, until we understand who's using the technology, the automation's being put into place by the people who don't want us here.
Right.
So the automation isn't being used to enhance my life; it's being used to eliminate my life.
Yeah, that's if you went into any of the boardrooms of McDonald's or Walmart.
They're not.
Why are you installing self-service counters?
They hate people.
All of your stores. Oh, just to make things so much better for people. No, they're trying to increase their profits by eliminating their workforce.
Exactly, to their shareholders, because their profits are based on interest-bearing currency and the whole thing. The true value of our society should be based upon clean drinking water and healthy food and all these intrinsic requirements to be a healthy human being, and that people don't get that. The healthier your society is, the lower your population rates are. I mean, you look at the West, population rates are declining because of advanced societies.
Yeah, advanced
and the societies that have exponential population growth are being denied technologies that would clean up their drinking water. There's no reason to have 50 kids if they're not dying due to waterborne illnesses. That's why America's population is stabilized.
Yeah,
is due to hygiene.
Yeah, all of this neo-Malthusian eugenicist sort of stuff, which again looks at humans and says humans are the problem. Well, no, it's just a lack.
We're the answer.
Yeah, we're the answer to all of our problems. We just need to apply that answer everywhere that we can. And so, like you rightly said, if Africa was allowed to develop and flourish into a modern technological society, its birth rates would go down. There would be less people, less environmental degradation caused by those people if you buy into all that.
Well,
so
what the
that
interest,
is the answer.
Yeah. Well, you buy into the thing with the environmental degradation. Like, why does developing Africa have to be based upon the old model of resource extraction and petroleum-based dollars, right? What if Africa was developed without interest-bearing currency? What if Africa was developed in the name of clean water and localized energy and clean technologies that are here?
Right.
Why do we need to build highways and like coal-fired power plants in Africa? Why can't we just hand out Tesla coils to everybody and turn on the lights?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I think that even our concept of these things is based so ingrained on like petroleum-based realities that we're just like, you know, because that requires war.
Right.
And then that's the only way you're going to develop Africa with on our economic model of the modern times still is somebody's got to suffer so that stuff can be pulled out of the ground. And the waste product of pulling stuff out of the ground means that other people downstream have to suffer with poor environmental living conditions. I don't see how.
Or again, we could use the coal in the ground and just use our human ingenuity to create better, cleaner extraction processes.
Well, we have all that. No, but I mean, we have all of this stuff, but you have this weird economic model where like people are allowed to extract without getting the full bill included in their extraction. You know what I mean? You look at what goes on in the Appalachians. Well, I don't think they're including water quality in their extraction bill.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that's where like the environment is where I go, fuck you, Donald Trump. Like straight up for selling out. Like, screw you, dude. You know, because he's not on it. Like, when you look at the longevity cycle of clean drinking water, Trump's not the friend of clean drinking water.
Right. Which is what everybody needs to be a friend of.
Yeah, like no water, no go.
Exactly.
So it's this weird thing of I see all of it being really like here together, but it's been hijacked. Again, it goes to this thing with what is the left about. It's hijacked the environmental movement. It hijacked the social inclusive movement. It's hijacked the family structure, all in the name of whatever the left claims it is now. It's not liberal. No. It's not pro humanity. It's not making the world a better place. It's a power grab for the name of socialism, and which is
for themselves, their own political power.
Well, people don't want to talk about the Ukraine, do they?
Right.
People don't want to talk about the Holodomor. And what happened in the Ukraine under Stalin, dude, that was people getting starved. You know, people don't look at what happened in the Ukraine and realize that was socialism, communism at its finest. Those people aren't allowed to have grain because they're the producers. They'll leave them starving in the street.
Right.
Like, do people grasp what happened in the Ukraine? Like,
yeah, or China.
Yeah, I mean that's how they did it. They didn't do it with guns. They did it with denying grain to people. Like, people are far out with what they think. So that's where it goes with the whole new like system, right? Like, you'll be denied the ability to buy grain because you'll have a bad algorithm due to your cryptocurrency number. Like, people are like into cryptocurrency. I go, really? That's the mark of the beast in my book. I'm an anti-cryptocurrency.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about all that. I mean, you see how the market has been so up and down. I don't think I could advise it as a wise investment strategy, at least.
Well, I don't even think of it like that. I think of it as it's moving more and more towards it. Is it's a digital-based reality, which removes my ability to operate. I need technology in order to feed myself now.
Right.
Right. And in order for cryptocurrency to work, I need an electronic device, and I need to exchange my cryptocurrency with another electronic device holder who has my food.
And even not just cryptocurrency, but credit cards or debit cards.
Yeah, they're gnarly, and I use them all over the place.
Right, same.
But it's that thing of like you still.
And we're kind of moving into the zone where the credit card companies are looking at people's political opinions.
That's crazy.
Like,
man.
PayPal are kicking Alex Jones and these other conservative figures.
Well, how about Chase Bank, like closing people's accounts?
Chase as well. Yeah.
Like, how is that?
That's a very slippery slope.
People aren't up in arms about all that stuff.
That's going to be particularly dangerous as we move further and further towards this cashless society.
Oh yeah, you're just out. Well, that's the whole cricket, or that's why all these tech companies have moved to China. Like, they're already doing it.
Yeah,
they're already denying people like the ability to fly and use trains and stuff.
Look at this historical starvation scenario. Well, you could do that today with technology if you just deny somebody the right to have a credit card because of their political views. Well, eventually you're going to starve them out because you'll be in a cashless society. They won't be able to feed themselves.
Yeah, it's right there.
Yeah,
but it's moved out into a fluffy world. And again, how they've made these homeless enclaves of our cities like socially acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where. So you have like if you go to downtown LA, there's what. 100 square blocks of like homeless madness. It's huge. And there's thousands of people down there, homeless, living in tents. I don't know where they poop. No one knows.
Right.
And so you make that like acceptable in a society, that these giant enclosures of open air ghettos or concentration camps. So they're calling Seattle an open air concentration camp with the amount of homeless up there.
Right.
So you make that part of the norm, and then you flip it where someone's things just kicked off. You won't even notice them because they'll just be with the mass of other disenfranchised people living in broken down motorhomes and tents and stuff. Like you've seen the movie Elysium. Oh yeah,
where there's the elites that live off world in the satellite, and then Earth is just trashed with all the poor people.
Well, I think Elysium's here on a localized level.
Right. Well, it exactly is if you apply this scenario to it.
The gentrification, yes, gentrification. I like that word. Very good. I think that's it's an interesting time. There's a lot going on, man.
Definitely.
Well,
lots of problems.
What's the solutions? We should do a solution round before we wrap this up.
Instead of just talking about the problems.
Well, I think we hit solutions.
I think we kind of did. I think the big one is participation, which means that you watching have to go participate in politics. And just your general community. And like Hamish said, it starts at your own table. So if you start participating at home, get your house in order, which Jordan Peterson is big on.
Yeah. I've fallen away with him.
Yeah, he's a little all over the place. But I think that's a good place to start for solutions, though, at home. And then look out to your community. So what is going wrong in your community? Instead of looking to these big social justice issues that probably are going to affect you never, what is actually going to affect you in your day-to-day life?
Who's on your planning commission? Who's on your city council?
Mm-hmm. And how can you change it? If you were on your planning commission or your city council, what would you do? And what could you do?
Because it's once you get in, it's big. There's a machine already in place, but you can get in there and play along and change it. People just don't get it.
Right.
But again, that's why civics isn't taught anymore.
Right.
Civics, how do you plug in? You don't plug. Donald Trump's in charge. Really? Are you sure? Are you sure about that? Have you gone down to your local city hall and
tried yourself to get involved?
Yeah, I mean, I know you have, I have, is it's accessible.
Mm-hmm.
You might not become the win, but you learn stuff and you meet people. And the relationships I've made by running for city council have been invaluable, man.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
And even then, maybe those relationships will lead to something down the road, or perhaps you will inject an idea into the conversation where you get enough support for your one particular idea that you might not win, but it forces another candidate to at least take that idea seriously and roll with it to some level.
Well, I actually, it's funny you mentioned that. I ran into this guy who got elected on the last to city council, and my campaign advisor was tied to him, so we had coffee one morning, and he was like, man, you broke trail. Like, the only reason I got elected was because we followed your path. And he was like, you kind of cleared a way for us to go into it. So he's like, you acknowledge my thing. I was like, that's kind of cool. Cause that's the thing, is someone's got to go break trail and be like an outlier going inside. Everybody wants to be on the fringe and complain about what's going on in the middle and be like, but if you want to really be the new fringe is in the center.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think we're almost also approaching a point now where the whole social justice warrior, the extreme left, is becoming out of fashion.
Oh, it's the backlash on it's going to be huge.
I think it's already starting in terms of it's now the joke of the conversation.
Well, I think that's why they're trying to capture the social media
exactly.
Right now. It's their last hope is to shut it down, but I don't really think they can. I think we'll just start making videos about Legos and ride out the storm.
And that'll be it.
Yeah,
just, that's all will be left.
Yeah, the Lego videos and kitty cat videos and stuff, dude. Yeah, just like that. So we're gonna wrap it up. You got Hype Your Channel. You got a channel for those 37 still here?
Yeah, my channel on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook is /Stuart J Hooper. STUART JHOOPER.
And you're in Oklahoma, swing by. Where you even want to know? Where are you in Oklahoma? Lawton.
Yeah.
Lawton, Oklahoma, and the university. Go look them up in the poli-sci class.
Yeah, I teach not just American government, but also international relations. So I'm the international relations guy.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I think I'm the international person doing that.
The ironies here, and thank you all for joining us on this mid-afternoon coffee talk. Don't forget, links down below if you want to support the channel. I think we got into some stuff. I think we proved we're not too welded to any one way of thinking, except thinking.
Exactly. That's what people need to do, is to think.
At least try.
Think critically.
Or at least be willing to listen.
Exactly.
So on the final note, I was watching, who does communicate their ideas, which surprises me, is the animal rights activists.
Right.
They're the last group on that side of the spectrum that actually will sit down and tell people, because they're like, if we don't talk to them, how are we going to save the animals?
Right.
I thought that was ironic because I watched this. I watched Slightly Offensive. You check out Slightly Offensive. He's an LA guy.
Okay.
But he goes to all the stuff, and they won't talk to him. They're like, you're a fascist. They just won't talk to this dude. And he's pretty much like us. He's not
sort of libertarian.
Yeah, just out there kind of seeing what's going on. And he's not a kook, but he's zany. And then he went out to the thing in Vernon where the pig slaughter factory was, and they had some animal rights video. Every one of the activists was fully willing to talk to him, be articulate, and be like, hey, this is what we're doing out here. No one came at him and it's like, we're not talking to you. They all were like, dude, there's a camera. Let's try to get our message to the other side. Because
that's very creepy, because the Democratic National Convention, they have said that they are not going to be broadcasting their debates for a Democratic presidential candidate on Fox News. They don't want to broadcast on Fox News because that's the right, and the right is bad and evil. Well, how are you ever going to reach those people and get your message to them?
Well, because people like me would be like, there's plenty of people like me that are like, Tulsi is exactly. I'd vote for Tulsi.
Same.
In fact, I'm going to switch parties just to vote for her in the primaries.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But they don't get that, if they can't make you seem stupid unless you are stupid. Like, they can't take you out of context. Like, it's bad activism. When I used to be a trained activist, like, they were like, look, you come with your prepared statement, you practice it, that's all you say. You have one thing you say, one message you're trying to get through. Anyone points a camera at you, you're like, blah, 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 blah. And they ask the question, blah, 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 blah. You just say the same thing. So you don't get anything out of context. You come with your prepackaged statement. Doesn't matter.
Out to everyone.
Yeah, you want to talk to the cameras. These people have gone mad where they're like, well, I don't want to talk to you. You're a fascist. Like, no, that's who you're supposed to talk to.
Yeah.
You're supposed to try to get your idea into the camp you don't like.
And convince them that it's the right idea.
Because
partly.
Because I think that's part of the backlash with it all is people are like, you're like, what? Like, what? Like, huh? I don't agree. But anyway.
Yeah, so listen to the other side.
Listen to the other side. Anyway, we're out. I think we 2 hours and 10 minutes. That's solid. Cheers, brother. Thank you for swinging by on your journey through.
Okay. Look at that. It's hysterical. That's what happens. Where's your buddies now, Crowder?
This guy.
Firing up.
Yeah, that's my one thing when the phone calls coming. This dude's interesting. Check him out. He's like on the vanguard of like the madness.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, we're out. Everybody have a beautiful afternoon. Don't forget to support the channel. And that's what we're doing. Later.